the Fool at the bottom of the deck, welcoming this message. We have 3 cards here that I have not opened up yet. We're going to open them up together and discuss them. First, let's clear our space. Little spring cleaning. That's what this message is about. Even if you are not watching this during the spring, it's an allegory. You could be watching this in the dead of winter. This is a message of cleansing, of spiritual cleansing. First, we clear out, which the Libra eclipse will be helping us with big time. Again, this is a timeless collective message, but that's where we're at on the timeline right now. March 25th, we will have the lunar eclipse in Libra. Before we get to the cards, little demonstration. Imagine this is your soul. We have just cleared out the things that no longer serve us. And now we are ready to move forward with the Fool. And even though the Fool doesn't have much with him, he does have his little satchel here, his sack that he's carrying. This is our soul. This water is spirit. And spirit wants to fill you with this refreshing, cold water for your journey. Let's begin here. Card number 1 is the 4 of Swords. What I'm getting off of this 4 of Swords is that we have already been doing a lot of purging as the collective here that I'm speaking to. We have done a lot of healing. We have prayed. Like, I'm seeing somebody kneeling down in a dark hour and praying for God, or however you identify your higher power, the divine source. Praying to that higher power and asking for help and for guidance and which way to go next. And many of us were told to, or it doesn't even have to be like, oh, we were told, we heard this booming voice, like the 10 Commandments, you know, that old movie. That's not how God ever speaks to me, except for a couple times. And one of them was when an angel appeared to me and told me to leave my Christian ministry and go on a sabbatical and go on a new journey with the Fool. One of like 2 other times that I heard an audible voice. For the most part, it's a quiet inner knowing that we are being beckoned almost. It's a desire. We feel a desire to do a certain thing. And for a lot of us, we felt different times for all of us, but I feel like we're all kind of converging on the road, coming together after a time of healing, purging, clearing out, asking God, the divine, to show us with this prayer here, which way to go, what to do next, healing from old wounds, right? And I feel like now we're ready to go, right? We've been doing this kind of like preliminary work, if you will. We kind of were prepping for this launch pad, prepping for this new beginning with the Fool here. Yeah, very interesting what we have at the bottom of the deck. We have these 2 conflicting energies right underneath the Fool. with the Knight of Pentacles and the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is the fastest. The Knight of Pentacles is the slowest. And so I feel like for many of us, there was this internal battle of pushing forward and then coming to a stop. Pushing forward and then coming to a stop. I don't feel like that was a miscalculation on our part. I don't feel like we were being... I feel like many of us were just in a time where we had to become very focused with the Four of Swords. And when we felt it was time to move fast on something, we moved fast on something. When we felt like it was time to slow down on something, we slowed down on something. I'm talking to a group of people that were perking up their ears. I'm very focused on this dog on the Fool card. It's like... I never see it this way, but it's almost like this is us, this little dog, and this is who we're following. It's like we're following our higher selves. It's almost as if our higher self knew the way the whole time. But in order for us to, with the Page of Swords, understand what that way has been, we had to come into this more quiet space, or this is the advice. If you feel like right now, we have a lot of energy here. If you feel like with the Eight of Wands and the Knight of Swords, if you feel like your mind is spinning and you can't think and you have so many options and you don't know what to choose and you don't know what to do, and the best thing to do right now is to go into this energy. Knight of Pentacles, Four of Swords. Right? But if we've been in this energy for too long and we want to have achievements in our lives, we want to have accomplishments, we want to move forward with the Eight of Wands, then maybe it's time to switch gears and go more into this Knight of Swords. I know that the Knight of Swords can be kind of a controversial card. People don't really like how the Knight of Swords is pushing forward so fast, but there's a time for this energy. Like if you're running a race, you want to be the Knight of Swords. You know, if you are trying to get a book done in a year's time, and it takes other people 2 years, 3 years, and you have a deadline, you might want to go into this Knight of Swords mode. There's a time for the Knight of Swords, in other words, right? So there's a balance here. It depends on which side of the spectrum that we're on. And I feel like it has been these energies. We've been on these different sides of the spectrum and we've been trying to quiet ourselves down, or again, this is the advice, to go more into this pensive, is that the right word? Into this. It's more of like a pupil energy as well, because we have these two pages, which is interesting here. This doesn't always have to be like, you don't have to be like laying down praying. You don't even have to be meditating with the Four of Swords, in my opinion. I look at it many times as a card of prayer or meditation because that's what it showcases. But it's an energy of silence, of contemplation. It's interesting. I didn't even know that I had this feather here. I have this little, that's an orange peel. I have this little sage container that I have, and I have this feather. And the Fool has a feather in his cap. See? It's almost like the divine is putting a feather right in your cap right now and saying, all right, kids, it's time to go. It's time to start this new adventure. And usually my guides will show me feathers when my angels are speaking to me. And I forgot that I had this here today. So let that be a message to you as well. But what I was going to say, and then we'll move to card number 2. There's a lot in this Four of Swords. And I'm going to talk about these pages. The past few days, I've been pulled aside. I've been kind of in this fast-paced mode for a time. because my guides have been having me really get a lot done, because for a time I was in a slower or solitude, like I was in a sedentary position for a while so that I could gain perspective and know what the heck I was doing. But then, really since the beginning of this year, 2024, I've been going fast every single day, nonstop. And if we're not careful, that can break us down, right? Health-wise. For example, I haven't been sleeping lately because I've just been going through a lot. If you watch the video right before this one where I talk about, not everybody can do what you do, I believe is the title. I'll put the playlist down below of these timeless collectives. And I talk a little bit about how, my family, my friends, people that used to support me in my Christian ministry, let's just make it snappy. They basically turned on me. They were people that looked to me as a guide, and really they called me a prophet for many years. And, Jesus said that a man is without honor in his own country, which basically he was saying the people that you grew up with, the people who know you well, when Spirit calls you to bigger things, emphasis on the word big, when Spirit calls you to the big dream with the Fool, and you are just abandoning the old way because your heart is pure, with reckless abandon. To some people it looks that way, but for you, you've been praying, you've been asking, you've been hoping for answers, looking for answers, studying, searching, researching, like even in a practical way, going to school, maybe for some of you, taking courses, doing research online, watching YouTube videos to figure out, okay, how do I build a website? How do I turn my business into an LLC? Very practical stuff. Page of Swords can also be, intellectual knowledge and learning and things like that, right? But what I am seeing with this Fool, and then we're going to get to the second card here, is that this might look sporadic to some people, but to us, it's very, very natural. It's almost like like this dog. It's like we've been just waiting for the moment to pounce. It's like, when your dog, I've had a couple dogs through the years. I don't have a dog now, and I love dogs. I love dogs. But sometimes my dog Maggie that I had for many years, she was the best dog. I miss her so much. She kind of looked like this. She was a smaller dog like this. And she would kind of just like look up at me and like wait for me to open the door. And when I would open the door, she would burst out. But until the time I would open the door, she would kind of just sit there in expectation. And again, that's how I'm kind of seeing this. It's like, that's not what the card means. I'm just seeing it as that today. It's like, this is more us, the dog with the Four of Swords. And this is our higher self. And it's like, we might look wild, like a wild animal to some people. And people might not understand you, and some may even, leave you, betray you, whatever. But you know what? Let them. Because the Fool only carries the necessary items with him. And like I started off at the beginning of this, we are clearing out our space, literally and figuratively, this spring cleaning, if you will, so that Spirit can fill us with this pure, clear water that quenches our thirst along the new journey that we're going on. And there are symbols of purity in this card, like the white rose, for example. I believe that even the sun is symbolic of purity in this card. I have to look back at my Fearless Tarot book and study that again. Actually, no, I have another book that just has the symbols that I actually got from Reck's tarot course. I have the book and I can't remember the title. I'll put it down below if I remember after. But it talks all about the symbols of the card, and I haven't found another book that does that. It goes deeply into that. But anyways, all right, let's move forward here. A lot coming through, guys. I'm going to take a deep breath for a second here. Let's just take a second. I should get a white rose. I like to have physical representations of things. Did I mention I cut my hair today? Take a little break, a little intermission. Want to support the show, the channel? You can always buy merch. All right. But Spirit has taken me to the side for the last few days specifically to kind of look at things again with the Four of Swords, and they've been talking to me about this channel and about some changes that I want to make coming up here. And you really got to get quiet to be able to hear the voice of your angels, right? It's a beautiful time for this. And we do have that Mercury retrograde coming up on April 1st, but you know, that pre-shadow, it's sneaking up on us. What is today? Today is the 12th of March. Again, this is a timeless reading, but I do like to give the exact details for those of you who appreciate that. Card number 2 is the Star. The Star with the Four of Swords. I mean, that is healing upon healing. But it's not just healing, and because I've made a lot of videos talking about us going through a time of healing, right? Like I've talked a lot about that. A lot of us have gone through this awakening where the serpent has risen up through the chakras, which some would call, you know, a Kundalini awakening. And even if some of us are more on the logical side here, we don't always have to be, you know, talking about chakras and Kundalini awakening. This can be, like I was saying before, more of a practical understanding of things with these pages, learning new things, discovering new things about ourselves. This can even be psychological. Like maybe some of you have been learning about, you know, like for example, and I always, you know, I tread lightly when I mention keywords like narcissistic abuse and things like this, right? But even if it wasn't that extreme for you, maybe you just had a really hard relationship and maybe that person cheated or lied or what have you. And you had to kind of recalibrate, and maybe you had to go into this time of healing and really understanding and learning deeper truths about your own self. That's the beauty about the Four of Swords is the stained glass window. It represents a blessing. How, and again, I learned a lot of this from Reck. It's this person blessing this other person. It reminds me kind of the Six of Pentacles, how this person is kneeling down and this person is giving them a blessing. This is a card, if you will, of answered prayers. And with the Star, it's almost as if this reading is saying, if you have been in a time of prayer, introspection, healing, asking what your next steps are in life, which way to go, what is my purpose, big questions like that, looking into things, and they could be practical. They can go from one side of the spectrum of like, oh, what can I do next for my business, or maybe what should I do for my career, all the way into the more, you know, woo-woo aspects, which I personally love because I'm a 12th house stellium. that talk about, like Kundalini awakening and things like this. I love all of that stuff, right? I love like transcendental meditation and all that, but lucid dreaming, those sorts of things. But I also can appreciate just having very practical understandings about who we are as people and looking into our pasts and the people that we've dated and the things that we've done and our, even down to our personalities. Like sometimes it makes you think, our personality is even more malleable than we'd expect. The pages are more malleable energies. And that's the crazy thing, is that I went through a lot of abuse. And I hate to use the A word, but it was more mental, mind games, with the Page of Swords in the reverse, where I actually, as a child, speaking of children, the pages can be children as well. I'm a Leo stellium, right? When I was a kid, I would just blast into the room with like all this energy. I used to put together these like crazy short films and performances, and I was always making jokes as a kid. I would like pull my pants up really high. Like all my friends were just like embarrassed of me and stuff. I was just full of life as a child, but I knew that my mom specifically didn't like that. I was homeschooled. I grew up with 3 siblings. My brother Mitch passed away last April. He was the middle son. I'm the oldest, and then I had 3 siblings that are younger than me. And I've been doing some healing with my brother's death since last April, and some healing through the past few years about my upbringing and things like this, since my Christian deconstruction, which is another way of saying I left Christianity after being a Christian since I exited the womb. I've always been a questioner. I've always been a learner, right? I always had questions that weren't answered by the church, so I was always looking for these loopholes and, side doors, and I tried to lawyer them, right? Especially about my sexuality and my gender, because that's just an automatic in the church. Even today, people will try to argue that and be like, oh, we're loving and accepting, but then you really get in there, even if people I'm sorry, but this has been my experience. Even if they have a rainbow flag outside of the church, you start to not always, of course. I knew a pastor who was gay, and she was lovely. Who is gay, I should say. I don't go there anymore. But anyways, my point is, sometimes you will find that these places claim to be like affirming and accepting and stuff like that, but then you kind of get in there and it's still awkward. Anyways, it's the same way for these churches filled with only white people, right? You know what I'm saying here? All right. Oh, we love and accept everybody, but you make it awkward for people to come in that aren't like you. So are you really affirming and accepting? The world may never know. But anyways, all right, I'm going to get off the pedestal for now, but bringing it back around. We have this Mercury retrograde coming up, and my guides brought me aside. Let me go back to this. For me, Mercury retrogrades, I actually really like Mercury retrogrades because it helps me remember the things that I forgot or the things that I put on the back burner, right? So I've been in this 4 of Swords, but what I was going to say with this healing energy is I've been in this healing mode. I've been in this studying my own self sort of mode, like looking into being curious. The Page of Swords is a card of curiosity, being curious about my own story and my own life. What I was saying before about our personality actually being surprisingly malleable is when I was a kid, I would burst into the room with all this big energy, right? With the star. And I would come in, I'd be singing on the microphone. I used to have one of those cassette toys, like what was it called? Mr. Mike or something. I don't know what the heck they were called, but you could like sing into the microphone. And my mom, I love my mom, right? She's a Libra, and she's a very kind, loving lady, but she was taught that there was a way that things needed to be done. And I was homeschooled, and I had 3 siblings younger than me, so basically I became a second mother. I do have a Cancer South Node, so shout out to the Cancers, right? You guys understand about being a mother. Even when you're like 8 years old, I was a mother. I learned how to take care of the household. I remember one of the highest compliments for me from my mother was she would say, Missy can run the entire household at 8 years old. But this is the thing. That was a lot of pressure for a child. And let me know down below if you guys relate to this. Especially being the oldest sibling, right? It's like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders so that you're not able to develop properly. So what I was going to say with this malleable energy here is that over the years, I started to become more and more inward, where my natural lean is like, hey guys, it's Missy Gordon the Metamystic here. But when I became a teenager especially, and I was struggling with eating disorders and self-harm and suicidal ideation and, trigger warning. Just, and then I struggled later down the line with drug addiction, with alcohol. I overdid a lot of things to compensate for the things that I didn't understand about myself. So in recent years, Spirit took me, I'm sure a lot of you relate because I'm saying all this, and then we're going to get to our final card. Spirit has taken us through these like tunnels of understanding. It's like we're starting, for those of us who have already done this work, and a lot of us have, we're about to come out of this tunnel. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel, where we're going to come out the other side in this Fool energy. But what I was going to say about the malleable personality thing is that I became very quiet. I struggled a lot with I'm diagnosed with anxiety and depression and all that stuff, right? And I was on medications, and I tried a lot of different things and blah, blah, blah. I went to therapy. I went to multiple different therapists, men, women, I tried a lot of stuff. And really, the thing that helped me most, and all those things are absolutely wonderful, and I highly recommend doing all of that, right? But the thing that actually did the most for me was my own understanding of myself, looking into that and being like, wait, I'm actually not like a quiet person. I'm actually kind of a loud person. So what happened back there? What happened that made me go inward? Well, it's because my mom didn't like that I was too silly. She had a lot on her plate, homeschooling all these children, and if I was being silly, then I was not helping take care of the children, Watch Shiny Happy People if you haven't, because I highly relate to that show. It seems eerily familiar to how I was raised. So anyways, but I've done a lot of healing, and I've started to come back out of my shell again in the past few years after looking into my own self, thinking about the fact that, wait, kind of regressing in a good way back to my inner child, back to who I really am, and that takes a lot of healing, and that takes a lot of honesty, So I've been praying for a few years, like, God, what is my next thing? What is my Fool moment? What's my next big moment with the Star and the Fool? Card number 3 is the Queen of Wands. See, the Queen of Wands, she kind of just finds out. She kind of just goes toward her passions, her desires, the things that make her feel good. That Casey Musgraves song, oh, whatever feels good. What song is that? whatever feels good. And her point in the song is to go toward the things that feel good to you, whether it's a person or what have you, or an impulse even. The Queen of Wands, she's very spiritual as well. She's very magical. She's like a witch, right? And she unashamedly just goes for her dreams, right? So if we're unclear on what our next steps are, kind of like with the Queen of Wands, let's just try some stuff and find out. Let's, if I feel like writing, like yesterday I wrote this poem called Dehumanized, and I hate to put this stuff out there before I actually get the work done, but I'm thinking about putting out another EP called Dehumanized, where, I talk about some of the things that made me feel dehumanized, whatever. And I wrote this poem yesterday, and it's like, that's very Queen of Wands. It's like, I just did that in the moment. And I was kind of working on something else. I was editing some stuff, but I took a minute, because I've been in this more kind of quieter contemplative space where I've been trying to keep my ears open. Remember how I was talking about with the Fool, like perking, the dog's ears perking up, like looking for that moment where the door opens and we can run out the door, like my dog Maggie. It's funny how there's a cat on this one. The cat and the dog. We just gotta be like cats and dogs. Cats and dogs don't think all about this stuff intellectually. They just do what they want to do. If a cat wants to sit in the sun and lick their fur for the next 4 hours, that's what they do. If a dog wants to go run around the yard, like a bat out of hell, that's what they do. It's like, I feel like with the Queen of Wands, it's saying, if we're unclear on what to do next with the Fool, the best way to get on the road, to get on the journey, is to go kind of more into our natural, almost kind of animalistic instincts. And I don't mean do anything crazy. I don't mean like substance abuse. I don't mean, you know what I'm saying, guys, right? I'm talking more about like inspiration, art, speaking, going to get some boba, because you feel like you want to do that today. Literally cleaning out your house, like spring cleaning. Whatever that is for you, the Queen of Wands, she just does it. And even if she like makes mistakes or she embarrasses herself, she kind of just does what she wants to do. She wears what she wants to wear. She says what she wants to say. And she kind of like uses that to her advantage, because she's the Queen of Wands. She's fabulous, right? She's the star. She's the star of the show. Male, female, non-binary, however you identify. And really, the Fool is the star of the entire tarot deck. And we have him here today. And the Fool is us. We're all the Fool. Each of our stories, each of us should have a memoir. Each of us should write our own memoir. Each of us should have, a movie based off of our own lives. Like, the Fool is the story of our lives, right? So we're always going to be this Fool in whatever part of the journey we're on. He goes through the entire tarot deck. He travels through the whole thing, and he always will, and he'll just repeat it again when he gets to the end. That's the Fool. That's life. So it is a card of discovery, right? It's a card of him going along the journey, like that book and movie Into the Wild, where Christopher McCandless, he travels and he meets people along the way. It's a very like Sagittarius sort of an energy where you travel where the wind takes you. And this could even be on the inside. You don't have to go anywhere. The Fool can be within us, right? The Fool can be like, hey, I'm gonna go sit in my backyard today, and just sit on the ground, and maybe I'll do some watercolor painting today. That's Queen of Wands, that's Fool, that's Star, and that's Four of Swords. That is healing, right? And that's getting back to us. So I love you guys so much. It's been Missy Gordon, the Meta Mystic here, and until next time, you take care.